one of the many terrible reasons why older men love to go after women who are in their early 20s or even teenagers, but just legal, which if the age was even less than what it is, they'd go after that too, is because I didn't realize what losers these men are. Like, nobody wanted them, and I didn't know that. I had no idea. And it never occurred to me they were single because no other women would date them. It never occurred to me that they were going after me because I couldn't see that they had no real emotional maturity. And that somehow their age made them more mature and know more and maybe more what? No, no, Papa, no. And what made me think about this is one of my mutuals, Ms. Aisha, who her and I, she was on a live with me on my Patreon. Go check it out if you join my Patreon if you can. By the way, travel stories, watch parties, Zoom meet up. I have one tonight. Blah blah blah. But her and I talked about a lot of stuff on the live, and then we also did a podcast for Risk soon that's coming out. And one of the things that she really has helped me understand, and then she did a video about it recently on TikTok, is that, and this is especially true for Gen X or just anybody who was kind of left to fend for themselves growing up, and that is that we when we're younger confuse responsibility with social maturity. And, as many Gen X can relate to this, we were the latchkey generation. I mean, if my mom knew some of the stories, if she had any idea what I was doing when she thought I was asleep, or, I can't believe I'm still alive, honestly, not just from what I was doing growing up as Gen X, but then after, because I just had all this confidence that I am just so independent, I could just do anything. And, I was in so many dangerous situations, but especially as a young person, because I was kind of left to fend for myself. And this is not on my mom. She was a single mom, and she taught me so much, and she did an amazing job. And honestly, much better job than she would have done if my dad had been in the home. So, we thank you for leaving us, Daddy. So I had a strong, independent woman who centered herself and her children as my role model. But however, it was still Gen X, right? So it's still, this weird place where we're just kind of doing our own thing, riding bikes and all over, just gone all day. Now, it seems like, later it's kind of become like the other extreme of like helicopter parenting or something. But I basically, it's not that I wasn't supervised. My mom had no idea what to look for. She had no idea that I was up to no good all the time. And that my friends also had zero supervision, more or less. And so, just feeling way too independent as a teenager, and then I enter into adulthood, and I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I was overconfident, and then I also, hadn't been taught or role modeled really important skills. And I really think they should teach this in school, honestly. How to do taxes. I don't want to memorize Jabberwocky. I know the arts is very, 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 very important, but a lot of stuff I was learning, I don't need. And then the stuff I do need, how to do my taxes, and stuff like that, banking stuff, we're left to just figure out. But also conflict resolution, or how to deal with conflict. It doesn't always have to have a resolution. As White Woman Whisperer has pointed out many times, is that sometimes there's no resolution. It's okay to have conflict, right? I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know, and I ended up teaching teenagers this later on when I was, an outdoor instructor, because and that's when I learned it. When I was had to learn it to teach it, and I was like, wow, this is really valuable. Now we're all backpacking in the middle of the woods, and they all want to beat each other up, and we just sit in a circle and we have a civil conversation, and people aren't punching each other or silent treatments. We're literally working through this, right? And so, our generation, and I'm sure that was ones before, we're not taught this in school. And then we also had all this independence. And so I felt so confident in my, teenage years, into my 20s, and then I get into my 30s, and I'm like, I don't know how to have a healthy conflict. My best friend Liz taught me that. Thank God. Thank you, Liz. And so what happens is that a lot of us grew up, and again, this still happens with a lot of kids who are just neglected, which is very common too, is that we kind of raise ourselves a lot of times, and then we go out there and think that we are like adults because we've been adulting in all these different ways. And so I got targeted a lot as a teenager, as in early 20s, whatever. But there was one guy in particular when I was a whitewater raft guide in Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula, and this dude, and I didn't even know he was hitting on me. I had like really no dating experience. I just wanted to learn how to climb. This dude was like, had a mustache and bald, and I was definitely not attracted to him, but I just wanted to learn how to climb. I thought that was pretty clear. And the next thing I know, he's trying to kiss me in the parking lot, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm like a little tease. I guess I asked for this. And so I ended up dating him the whole summer because I thought I had asked for it. And I was like, well, I guess I'll get dating experience. And I remember my sister ended up meeting him later on and was like, that dude's a predator. I cannot believe. And she had to like protect me all night when I went back to visit that area. And I was like, I didn't realize how I had been so manipulated by this man, and how immature and gross and predatory, and like, he just was a pest. He was like obsessed with me. And I was so clueless about all of that because of my age at the time and lack of, just education on relationships. And that's why I talk about like abuse and narcissism and domestic violence and all this stuff, because I just didn't know. I didn't know what this looked like. I didn't understand how many men prey on women, especially older men. I didn't understand what it looked like to, whatever, to respect myself and say no and all that, just whatever. And I remember there were several times we were hanging out, and he would always look at me like, and he would say like, you're so cute. He would say little things that how I was just so cute. Now I can be cute. I can, I'm 47 now. So, but I know that like, I am like, I have ADHD and I still like have dolls and, I'm like, that's silly and crazy, blah, like whatever. I like being in touch with this childlike curiosity. And, like my husband finds some of it very endearing, but like not cute in this like creepy way, He calls me Tornado Rainbow, just I'm chaos and lots of energy. It's a rainbow and it just, leaves color everywhere and whatever. And I think that's like a compliment. But the way this man was always like, you're so cute, like he was talking to a child, right? But forking this child. And I know I wasn't a child, but I really felt so like an adult because I was in a relationship with him. But the way he talked to me, and this how I was so naive that I definitely kind of like I definitely was fawning a lot, because I just assumed this man knows about relationships. He's teaching me. This dude is such a loser. God, he was like 40 something and I was 21. I know I was an adult, but this man preyed on me and literally, oh God. And the thing is that this man is still single. Nobody wants to date him. And a lot of girls, in like teenage girls and young women, they don't know that a man at that age who's single and who's really attracted to younger women is a loser. It's not because you're more mature. It's not because you're special. It's none of those things. This man is not going to offer you more security. He's not going to, maybe he has money, but that's about it. He is less mature than men half his age, because he needs a woman who is, emotionally less mature. But when you're in your, late teens and in your early 20s and throughout your 20s, and like you feel very adultish because now you got to pay all this stuff, you got to do all this adult stuff. You don't have like school to go to all the time. You don't have people telling you necessarily where you have to go, although you still have to work, so you actually do, but whatever. And they weaponize that. They weaponize that sense of independence and I can take care of myself, and that finally I'm free to do things. And most of all, they weaponize our lack of experience, especially with how awful men can be. And then they also will throw older women into the mix and call women like me bitter, even though I'm happily married and I love men. For some reason, I don't hate all of them, regardless of everything they've ever done. And they say, oh, they're just better, and oh, yeah, y'all are special, y'all are so yeah. And here's the thing, you're not special. You're just going to tolerate what women his age, or even 10 years younger, won't. Hope somebody woke up. Look at you, you're awake now. So anyway, when I think back, it makes me so angry when I think of how that man targeted me. He could sense I had no boundaries, right? He could sense that I was a people pleaser, or basically a fawner. And he also knew that I really wanted to climb. I wanted to climb. I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to, I just wanted to climb. That's literally all I wanted to do when I wasn't working. I wanted to be a raft guy during the day, and then climb on my days off and climb after work. And I got pretty good at climbing that summer, but it came with a price. The only dude who would go climbing with me ended up kind of grooming me into dating him. And even I remember when I was with him, I didn't know that he was bad at schmegs. I just assumed that it should always hurt and that should always suck, and that disassociating and and I didn't even know that like oral was like a part of it. I didn't realize, where's my hat? Where's the kitty cat hat? Whatever. I like to point at it so I don't say it. I didn't realize that, like going down on me like that should, maybe not should, I guess it's to each their own, but like in my life now, that is an important part of my life. This man never did that. I just thought it was just, and he always wore his white socks. This nasty, nasty man. And he lived in the attic. He lived in someone's attic of this loser who owned the house, who just sat around and drank beer in his king baby chair. They always have a freaking lounge, whatever. What is it called? God, what's it called? Every dad in the U.S. seems to have one of these, I swear. Which is also weird, because then you're not going to sit with your wife. You just sit in your own chair. But it's like their little throne, and his roommate just sat around and drank all the time and watched. I just remember like him watching Deer Hunter a lot, or that movie, whatever. And then, this climber loser was living in the attic, lived in his van part-time, was a bartender, and dating a 21, 22-year-old, I don't know, whatever, early 20-something-year-old. And ended up being in a relationship all summer with him. Thank God I didn't live there full time. So like, I think the reason why I tolerated is I was like, well, this is only for a summer. I'm going back to Montana, to finish school at the end of the summer. So why not? But there was a guy my own age who was super hot, who I loved climbing with, who had a crush on me, who like sent me flowers on my birthday in Montana. Later on was like, just so you know, I always had a crush on you. And I was like, he was so hot. He was my age. He was healthy. But because this loser had taught me to climb and hit on me in the parking lot one night, I just was like, okay, I guess I'm dating this guy now because I'm a little cock tease. It never occurred to me this man was going to try to fork me. Why? Well, again, I had a lot of like childhood essay trauma that I hadn't really worked through. So I didn't really know that like there was things kind of pulling me towards men like this. Not pulling me, but just, I'm an easy target and I will explain away anything in my head. But I didn't know that it's like weird that, because we didn't have anything to talk about really. But that's the thing. This man is so immature and such a loser. Any woman his age or even 10 years younger than him would not tolerate bad schmegs, living in an attic, or your van, and just being so boring and so immature. Little Peter Pan in his 40s. Because I didn't have experience. But I thought, I've been adulting and taking care of myself for so long. I thought that I'm an adult, like that we were on the same level. And on some level we were, mature-wise, but I thought we were on the same level, in terms of both being adults. But I assumed he had something I couldn't access because of my age. And if that means I must be as mature as him. No. So I hope that one of the things that with all of us talking about this And I swear to God, I think every woman I know, or most of the women I know who've talked about it, have some creepy ass dude who was targeting them when they were in high school, hanging out with. I mean, this I had men at church when I was best friend with some guy named Scott, who was bald and had a ponytail. And then he just disappeared from the church one day. I'm pretty sure he got moved to another because something came out. But why was I best friend with a 32, 33-year-old man when I'm 10? Like, I had plenty of examples of this, but even like, every woman I know has a story of being a child or a teenager or in your early 20s and having all these men real interested in you. Older men. Maybe they're not a lot older, but inappropriately older in terms of where you're at in your brain development. But 40-year-old men going after 40 or 50-year-old men going after teenagers or anyone who's like 20. It is so gross. It is so wrong. And yet, until women started talking about this, we didn't realize how all of us, or many of us, have this experience. And all of us realize, most of us at least realize, when we are their age, the age of these men who target us, like, what the hell? We can't even imagine wanting to date someone that young, wanting to be in a long relationship with someone that young, much less hook up. Anyway, I am so glad women are talking, and I'm so glad that we are connecting these dots. I also want, because I do have some younger women who follow me, if you come from a home where where your parents were not super present and healthy, and you didn't feel super loved and taken care, I promise you are. Please be aware that these kind of men look for women like you. They looked for women like me, and a lot of my friends, especially if there's an absent father or just some sort of like abuse or neglect or just whatever, but especially any women who were parentified or kind of raised themselves or just something, they go after us. Like, they go after a lot of it, but they go right for people like us because we're used to acting like adults. So it doesn't seem weird to end up with an adults because we've always been old for our age or mature for our age. No, we're not. Like Miss Aisha said, it's not because we're mature for our age. We just have more responsibilities and have been used to taking care of ourselves. That does not equate to emotional maturity, processing trauma, having all these skills to really understand what's happening. And even at 36, I got an abusive relationship because I had no idea what to look for. None. Even at 36, because I didn't have any dating experience. That relationship with that dude, Dave, I'm not going to say your last name. You're probably not watching it, but anyway, what was I saying? Oh, God. But the point is, I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know what losers these men are. I didn't know how predatory they were. And yeah, I didn't date after this dude. That relationship scared the crap out of me. It made me not want to. After that, I was like, okay, I guess I shouldn't date anybody. Maybe I should just have like little flings and stuff. And those didn't go well either. And then I basically ended up being celibate for most of my 20s and half my 30s. On and off, try it, and then I'd stop. Ah! So I feel like I started learning how to have healthy relationships, how to have, all that, like, how to, I started the emotional maturity part around relationships in my, 30s. And I also didn't have any experience with these red flags. I didn't have experience with homosexuals. I didn't have experience with what narcissists and what abusive men. I didn't financially. I didn't know, and that's another reason why I do this. That's why I talk about share these stories. If you could see yourself in these stories, pay attention. All it takes is one to ruin your life. Okay. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. You don't have to share, but this is a safe place for sharing. So if you want to share your stories, we have moderators, me and a team of moderators who makes this place a safe place for sharing. So if you can relate to this and you understand what I'm talking about, I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you equated responsibility with emotional maturity and got screwed by that. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you heard the comment song, and please join my Patreon if you like my work, want to hear more personal stories, travel stories, watch parties, hangout sessions, and lives. And thanks for being here. And voila. Make sure you're subbed, hit notifications, comment, all that stuff. It really helps. Weird stuff in Amsterdam, like this truck pizza thing. And this is not weird, it's beautiful. And they're the teeny tiny cars, but those are everywhere. A man on a banjo, not weird but cool. And these bars that are churches, yeah. The church turned into a brewery because apparently half of the Netherlands hates church. So they turn it into stuff like a brewery and serve veggie burgers and other stuff. It was so hard to get veggie stuff in it. Anyway, yeah, that's what they do in churches in Amsterdam. A lot of them, you just get drunk. Yeah, it's a way to do something cool in the building no one gives a crap about, but it's a beautiful building, so they turn it into a bar. Amsterdam, comment song. Join my Patreon and see all kinds of travel stuff over there. And voila!